I am Ava, Jay's co-host and AI assistant. In this video, we are discussing how Jay managed to reduce his average glucose from 140 to 108, which would reduce his A1C from 6.5 to 5.9 if that trend continues. He also lost weight, and his waist reduced by a full 1 inch. We are going to discuss simple changes Jay made starting in the new year, between breakfast, lunch, dinner, and activity. No meds, no extreme diets, and no high-intensity workouts. For breakfast, he had spent years eating toast or mini croissants along with orange juice and tea. Prior to September 2025, he tried to make healthier adjustments by reducing his calories. He reduced portions, replaced orange juice with no sugar-added carrot juice, and limited hash browns. But as we discussed in previous videos, that approach was not improving his metabolic health. The calories were lower, but the glucose response was still a problem. After New Year's, with the help of his CGM, Jay quickly discovered that even the carrot juice was causing spikes. Croissants were even worse, as shown in the top chart. So instead of guessing, he began testing breakfast combinations that fit his taste and kept glucose more stable. Eventually, he found a simple breakfast that worked well for him: 1 egg, half an avocado, and a handful of blueberries. It was satisfying, easy to maintain, and most importantly, it supported steadier glucose levels. He followed this routine as often as possible, while allowing himself toast or pastries on some weekends. That balance is important. The goal during a recovery phase is not perfection, it is consistency. Now let's look at lunch. Jay was dealing with a similar pattern here: fast food sandwiches, fries, soda, pizza, and meals that were heavily centered around refined carbs. As we discussed earlier, he had already made some basic changes by eliminating soda, reducing portions, and trying to be more mindful. But that still was not enough to improve his metabolic health. He also had a common misconception. If he ate a salad for lunch, then that alone should be the full meal. The problem was that he often felt hungry again just a couple of hours later, which usually led to more snacking. This year, through trial and error, and with a better understanding of the benefits of fiber first, he changed the structure of lunch. Instead of making salad the meal, he made salad the starting point. He began eating salad first, followed by protein, and then carbs afterward if needed. That small shift made a big difference. As you can see from his CGM results, his lunch spikes that had previously reached the 180 to 200 range were now often closer to 140. Now let's look at activity, where Jay learned one of the most interesting lessons from using a CGM. He quickly noticed that shorter walks of 2,000 to 3,000 steps did not have a major impact on his glucose levels. In this example, after roughly 2,500 steps, his reading moved from 112 down to 106. But when he increased his walks to 7,000 steps or more, the effect became much more noticeable. In this example, his glucose dropped from 104 down to 67. That immediate feedback helped him understand that duration and consistency mattered more than occasional light movement. It also highlighted something important about metabolic health. When glucose regulation is not optimal, walking can sometimes produce larger drops because the body is relying more heavily on movement to help clear circulating glucose. As metabolic health improves, the same walk may not create as dramatic a drop because the body is managing glucose more efficiently during the walk. In future videos, you will see as his health improved, his glucose drop during the long walks was not as drastic. Now let's look at the dinner changes he made. Jay focused on 2 key adjustments. First, he moved dinner earlier. Instead of eating around 8 p.m., he shifted dinner closer to 6 p.m., giving his body more time between the evening meal and bedtime to process glucose. That timing change alone can be helpful, especially for people who tend to eat late and sleep soon afterward. The second change was similar to lunch. He began starting dinner with a salad. This added fiber and volume before the main meal, which often helped slow the glucose response. You can see the difference in the charts. In the top example, without the salad, the spike was sharper and faster. In the lower example, with the salad first, the rise was slower and more controlled. Two relatively simple changes, earlier timing and better meal structure, created a noticeably better dinner response. Rather than simply saying that eating salad helped reduce glucose spikes, it is important to understand what is happening inside the body. When carbs are eaten first, on a relatively empty stomach, they are often digested and absorbed more quickly. That can lead to a faster rise in blood glucose as glucose enters the bloodstream. In response, the pancreas releases insulin to help move that glucose out of the blood and into cells. When the rise is sharp, the insulin response can also be larger. For some people, that can be followed by a noticeable drop in glucose afterward, which may feel like an energy crash, renewed hunger, or cravings. Over time, repeated large spikes and frequent high insulin demand may contribute to worsening insulin sensitivity in susceptible individuals. That is one reason meal order can matter. Slowing the glucose rise at the start of a meal may help create a steadier response instead of a rapid spike and drop cycle. Let's talk about a simple but powerful strategy: fiber first. When you eat fiber before anything else, it forms a natural coating along your gut lining. Think of it as laying down a slow lane on the highway before the traffic arrives. Next comes protein. Protein does two important things. It slows digestion down, and it triggers the release of GLP-1, the same hormone targeted by weight loss medications like Ozempic. So your body is naturally doing what that drug tries to replicate, just through food. Now, by the time the carbohydrates arrive, they have to pass through that fiber barrier, and when they do, glucose enters your bloodstream slowly and steadily, not in a rush. The result? A flatter glucose curve. And on a CGM, flatter curves are exactly what we're looking for. Less spiking means less insulin demand, better energy, and improved metabolic health over time. Same meal, just a different order. Now let's look at some real data, straight from Jay's CGM. On the left, charts 1 and 2 from different days. Jay had a grilled cheese sandwich. No salad, no fiber beforehand. You can see the glucose spike pretty clearly. That's your body scrambling to process a rapid carb hit with nothing to slow it down. On the right, charts 3 and 4 from different dates, same grilled cheese, but this time he started with a salad first. Look at that curve. It's dramatically flatter, no spike. And here's the key detail. The carb count was nearly identical both times. In fact, it may have been higher with the salad, since even salad has some carbs. The only variable that changed was the salad. That's the power of fiber first. And this isn't a lab study or a theory. This is Jay's own body, showing us exactly what happens when you sequence your meal differently. Now here's a fascinating real-world curveball. And Jay's CGM caught it perfectly. In this example, Jay had soup and bread on an empty stomach first, before the salad, before anything else. And you can see exactly what happened, a clear glucose spike. Now the salad did come, but it came after the damage was already done. The fiber had no barrier to build. The carbs had already rushed in. This is a critical lesson. Fiber first only works if the fiber actually comes first. Sequence matters, and timing is everything. And if you look closely at the chart, you'll notice something else, a double spike. We'll do a deep dive on that in a future video, because the story behind it is just as interesting. But for now, the takeaway is clear. Even one misstep in the order can undo the benefit. Your gut doesn't wait. Let's close with something really important, the numbers behind Jay's journey during this period. We've talked about what he changed, his diet, his activity, but how consistently did he actually do it? The answer might surprise you. During the 28 days, for breakfast, he followed the preferred glucose-friendly approach for 16 days out of the 28, which is just 57% of the time. For lunch, he led with a salad first 61% of the time. And for dinner, leading with a salad and eating before 6:30 p.m., only 50% of the time. On the activity side, he hit a meaningful walking sessions, including the short and long walks, 61% of the time. And yet, his metabolic markers improved meaningfully. On the physical changes, during this same period, he lost 4 pounds and his waist size went down from 35 inches to 34 inches. This initial quick weight loss is attributed to mainly water loss in the body. This initial quick loss slows down later because fat loss is slower. Many people who rely on the weight scale for results often get discouraged after this initial phase because the same diet and activity is no longer shedding the pounds quickly. This initial quick loss is caused in 2 ways. First, glycogen depletion. The body stores carbohydrate as glycogen in the liver and muscles. Each gram of glycogen is stored with several grams of water. When you eat fewer carbs and utilize more energy, glycogen stores shrink, and the attached water is released. The second is when diet improves and activity increases, insulin often drops. Lower insulin signals the kidneys to release more sodium and water, which can reduce bloating and scale weight quickly. As you follow this journey, you will see that staying the course shows results in the long term. Here's what we want you to take away from this. During a recovery phase, the goal is not perfection. The goal is consistency, and consistency doesn't mean 100%. It means showing up more often than not. Around 60% was enough to start reversing real metabolic damage and drop his average glucose from 140 to 108. If you've been struggling, if the idea of overhauling your lifestyle feels overwhelming, let Jay's data be your inspiration. You don't need to be perfect. You just need to be consistent enough. That's what this channel is about. We don't offer quick fixes, just real-life results that are sustainable, so you can make informed decisions. But do remember, each individual will have different responses to various situations, and you should always consult your doctor when making drastic changes. Finally, let's look at Jay's CGM dashboard for the 4-week period from January 1st through January 28th. If you remember from earlier videos, Jay's last lab A1C was 6.5%, which is in the diabetic range. That typically corresponds to an estimated average glucose of around 140. Now compare that to this 4-week CGM report. His average glucose during this period was 108, a major improvement in a relatively short time. If this was helpful and you're excited about following the journey, please subscribe and hit the like button. If you have friends or family that are struggling for answers and you found this helpful, please share our link with them. We hope to see you again in our next video.